Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is September the 21st special board meeting of the Board of Supervisors. Our first item, well, first off, let's do a roll call and see who we have on the telephone.
Supervisor Angus?
Here.
Supervisor Johnson?
Here.
Supervisor Gould?
Here.
And we have Supervisor Bishop and Watson here. We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. Now we'll go on to our first agenda item. This will be a discussion of possible action, an update by the County Public Health Director to the Board of Supervisors regarding recent issues, actions, events, and county responses regarding COVID-19 updates and taking the necessary actions based upon the updates. We have our Public Health Director, Denise Burley, at the podium, and I'll turn this over to you. Denise, thank you.
Great. Madam Chair, members of the board, I'll go through my usual numbers update. Confirmed cases, 3,773 in the county to date. The average age of our cases is 47.8. We've had 211 COVID deaths, and the average age of those deaths has been 76 years of age. We've got 2,960 recovered cases. We've investigated and completed investigations on 3,171 of those cases. That puts us at about 84% completion rate for our investigations. For the remaining investigations, they are either pending, in progress, or waiting on their isolation period to be considered a complete investigation. There are some individuals, of course, instances where we've had uninvestigated cases, and these particular individuals are those that either refuse to be interviewed, have not responded to our calls or letters, or for whom we are unable to find contact information despite repeated attempts. So just wanted you to be aware that we do have instances in those particular cases, and I've mentioned that in the past, but I don't think they are a large percentage of our cases, but did want to make sure you were aware of that.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions on the numbers and the cases?
I don't think so, Denise.
All
Thank
right.
you.
I did want to provide an update, and Supervisor Angus, please correct me if I didn't get your statement and your comment correct, but during Thursday's board meeting last week, Supervisor Angus mentioned that WARMC was reporting all ICU cases as COVID in the EM resource. Is that correct, Supervisor Angus?
Well, I said they immediately, if someone comes in with those symptoms, they do. But if sometimes the tests come back negative and they're taken out. Certainly.
Okay. I did contact WARMC just for clarification, and I did want you to be aware that they have two ICU units. I guess that's intensive care units. The first is just their general population ICU. The second is an actual COVID unit. And EM Resource provides guidelines, requirements on how to report cases and report in that system. And what they've stated is that the requirements clearly state that hospitals will report both patients under investigation, so those are not confirmed cases, and confirmed cases under that particular category. And on Thursday, within that one intensive care unit, the COVID unit, they had 3 patients are under investigation, and then they had 3 confirmed cases in that particular COVID intensive care unit. So,
Okay,
yeah. So they do report both, and then as they receive information back on testing, then they'll alter their statistics based on that, based on what they.
Thank you very much for taking the time and doing that.
Sure, you bet. Any questions on that? Okay. I have the final test results from the HHS surge testing events that were held in all 3 communities. We had a total of 667 tests performed. We had 8 total positive results, of which 7 were Mojave County residents. As I mentioned, there was one that tested in Bullhead City that was a Nevada resident. So And looking ahead, wanted to go over the CDC COVID testing recommendations. The testing recommendations, as you may be aware, were revised by CDC to include those that were symptomatic and not asymptomatic, and they have since changed back so that they are now recommending that individuals who are asymptomatic, who have had close contact with individuals, or those that have been instructed by healthcare providers or by a health professional to be tested, along with symptomatic individuals get tested. So I probably didn't say that very clearly. Could I step back and redo that? So the CDC has changed their recommendations. So symptomatic individuals still need to be tested. In addition to that, anyone who has been a close contact of a positive case should be tested. In addition to that, anybody who is recommended by a healthcare, public health, or other provider should also be tested. And those would be under specific conditions that were determined during that particular appointment or investigation. Any questions there? I think the second time was a bit more clear. All right. And finally, there's been a lot of discussion about masks and whether or not there's any efficacy to the use of masks. And I do want to reiterate the importance of wearing a mask while out in public when unable to social distance. And there have been statements made recently, more direct, I think, than we've heard in the past, about the importance of mask wearing when you're unable to physical distance, made by the Center for Disease Control and Prevention director. And in many respects, you know, their feeling is at this point, and their belief, not just their feeling, but their belief based on studies and research, is that those masks may offer more protection against COVID than a vaccine moving forward. And the reason for that is that vaccines may only provide about 70% protection, just depends on which vaccine is approved, and the testing done, and they'll test to determine what the efficacy is for those particular vaccines. But I think in terms of prevention, which is what we're advocating for, a mask can actually do quite a bit to prevent people from spreading and also people from contracting the virus. So we certainly want to make that point moving forward, to continue to wear the masks while out in public. Any
Denise,
questions?
can you explain the controversy that's going on now between people who believe you should wear a mask and people that think the mask makes you sicker? And I think that's probably an unfair question to you, because I don't think anybody can explain what's going on with the conversations that we're seeing in the public. But can you shed any light on why that is, in your personal opinion, maybe?
Well, I mean, I've seen some of the articles that have been associated with this particular topic, and based on the research that's out there between Centers for Disease Control and what they're presenting and the WHO, I think there's enough evidence out there to suggest that people don't, that there are not those same issues with wearing a mask that I've seen circulating out in the media and other sources. The mask does its job in preventing. It's not a perfect system by any means, and nobody has ever said it is a perfect system for preventing the spread of the virus. But it does a remarkable job, and can definitely slow the spread pretty significantly. Whether or not people become sick as a result of wearing them, I think if you were to wear a mask that has that doesn't allow for airflow, certainly that could be a problem. I think it really depends on the type of mask you're wearing. Procedural masks, some of the cloth masks, I think do a lot. Somebody reminded me that Bill Nye the Science Guy came up with a way to test your mask, and that is if you can blow a candle out while you're wearing the mask, then it's not going to be as effective. right? Because that's blowing air out. So, did I answer your question?
I think you answered as well as anybody can. Thank you very much.
As well as anybody could at the moment?
Yes.
Right. So, and I don't really have any other updates, but I certainly want to make myself available to any questions that you may have or any other board members.
Okay, thank you. I'll open it up to questions or comments from the board. Supervisor Johnson, Supervisor Gold, Supervisor Angus, do you have anything?
Madam Chair?
Yes, go ahead, Supervisor Angus.
Denise, do you, and this is to Denise and to the board, do you think that these twice weekly meetings are still necessary? Because we're going back to, as I understand it, we're going back to our regular 2 meetings a month in October. And so anything that would come up, you can always call an emergency meeting because, we see the numbers and it's really just kind of more of the same. So I just wanted to throw that out there for discussion.
Certainly. I will certainly, Supervisor Angus, defer to the board's decision on how they wish to proceed with board meetings. I will follow whatever recommendation is made.
Okay, does any of the board members have any comments?
Madam Chairman Gould here.
Supervisor Gold?
I tend to agree with Supervisor Angus that if we're going to return to twice monthly meetings, then we can be updated at that time. Questions can be answered email, taking care not to break the open meeting law between sharing information between supervisors. And in the meantime, I guess we've only got 2 weeks left. If we could, I would move that we reduce the schedule of COVID meetings to once a week until October.
Okay, we do have a motion on the floor.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
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 Okay, the motion fails. Any other comments or discussion?
I have some questions, Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
We post deaths by city on our county COVID website, but we no longer list total deaths in each city on our press releases. Why is that?
I'm not sure why we don't have that available to you, Supervisor Johnson, so we can certainly do so.
Okay. Yeah, because on our COVID website, we list cases by city and community, but we're still listing deaths in service areas. Is it possible to break that down, by zip codes again? Because, especially in the Kingman and Bullhead area, that's a huge area they take in, and it's not all Bullhead, it's not all Kingman.
Can I get back to you on how granular we can break that down for you, Supervisor Johnson? Because some of that might be difficult to do only because our numbers may be small if we get into the smaller communities and smaller zip codes.
Sure, that's fine. And maybe even if we were able to do Kingman proper, Bullhead proper, and then other, for outside of Kingman or outside of Bullhead might help with looking at that.
Okay.
Last week, the state started counting positive cases that were confirmed with an antigen test in their probable COVID case count. I'm pretty sure I'm probably not the only one who has a bit taken back by this. For one, I was never aware that we weren't counting positive cases that came from antigen tests. An antigen test is also known as a rapid test, and I guess my question to the director is, we've been pushing these antigen or rapid tests as a board. We even wrote a letter of support so a primary care in Lake Havasu could get these tests. So why aren't we counting them?
So Supervisor Johnson, we've been encouraging these tests as a way to get rapid test results. But for example, with the Abbott rapid testing machine that we received here, we also knew that the sensitivity level of that machine, once we received it, we learned the sensitivity level was only about 60%, which means it gives you about a 40% false positive or false negative test result. So in those particular cases, we knew we would need to go back out and send that particular specimen out to get a confirmatory negative test from the state lab, at least through our process. The Cadell machine, I think, if I remember correctly, has a much higher sensitivity rate, but still not as strong as a PCR test. And so that's why I believe they don't count it as a confirmatory, a confirmed case, is because they simply have an error rate that doesn't meet their standard gold star criteria.
Okay, I'm wondering if we have a second wave hit us, should we find a way to count these tests like the state has? We could do it like the state and put them in a probable category. I just think as the time goes on, and if we don't find a way to count these tests, we're going to be hundreds or even more than that cases off of what the state is.
Certainly. So Supervisor Johnson, if I could just mention something real quick.
Sure.
All of these tests should be reported. The rapid tests, in addition to PCR tests, should all be reported. And so we should be getting those as probables, at least at this point. Okay?
All right. Now, since we've never counted the antigen positives in our case count, does that mean we've never done any contact tracing?
Correct. Because they were always, unless they came to us as confirmed cases, which, as you know, some did come to us as already reported as confirmed cases, and those are the ones that were adjusted last week. In those particular cases, if they came to us confirmed, then we completed the investigation.
All right. Do you know, or can you find out if probable antigen tests and cases are included in our COVID benchmarks for business reopening?
I can find that out for you. Mm-hmm.
All right. The governor recently signed an executive order requiring hospitals to report their flu patients and statistics to the health department, similar to how they're required to do COVID. Are we going to report this in our daily hospital report along with COVID so we can get a better idea of if we're seeing an uptick in our hospital capacity from COVID or the flu?
I will look and see what we can do for that, Supervisor Johnson, okay?
All right. That's all, Madam Chair, Director. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have any comments? Okay, thank you, Denise.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item will be a discussion of possible action. Approved contract number IGA 2020-020, Healthy People, Healthy Communities, 238-04-5118, accreditation 225045125, tobacco 240045124, happy 242045182, teen pregnancy, and 248045154, child fatality review. This will be between Arizona Department of Health Services and Mojave County Department of Public Health, with revised budgets for July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2025. Okay, Denise, do you have anything to add to this?
I do not. I did want you to be aware that you realize this is not a specific COVID activity, although...
Can't hear.
Thank you, Supervisor Gould. I was trying not to have my paperwork shifting around cause some background noise. The reason that this is on this particular agenda is that between changes in staffing at ADHS and changing in staffing within our particular department and who would actually receive this contract, it sort of got lost. But we need to have it approved prior to the end of the federal fiscal year, which is the end of this year, so that we can receive funding for one of the pieces of this, our accreditation funding, because that funding only extends through the end of September. It's on a federal fiscal year.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Mr. Elters.
may I? Denise, you said this needs to happen before the end of the fiscal year, federal fiscal year, which is the end of this year. Did you mean the end of this year or the end of this month?
Which would be the end of this month.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, correct. So the federal fiscal year will end September 30th, and we need it approved because this part of the contract, the accreditation piece of this particular contract, this integrated IGA, that funding is based on a federal fiscal year.
I just wanted to clarify, Madam Chair. I didn't think you intended to say the end of the year, but
Thank you.
that's what I heard.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Chairman.
Yes, go ahead.
Denise, the question about the teen pregnancy program,
Yes.
what is the teen pregnancy program?
The teen pregnancy program is pregnancy prevention. It's abstinence plus based programming that we provide in schools with their approval. And we have established curriculum to choose from through the Arizona Department of Health Services. And we provide those lessons within the classroom structure.
Have you received authorization from the school boards to provide that to the schools with the opportunity for the school boards to vote yea or nay?
I believe so, yes, Supervisor Gould. I guess that would be part of the process for sure.
So when do they get to vote?
So typically, we present this to the school superintendent, and the superintendent would then take it to the school board for their approval.
And that happens after the program's renewed?
Well, the funding would be renewed, yes, and then we would certainly work with superintendents to ensure their approval moving forward in providing this curriculum to the students.
What is abstinence plus?
I might need to get back with you for an exact definition of that.
Okay. I don't know that I can support the program if I don't know what it is. So I'll be voting no today.
Hang on just one moment. We may be able to answer that question.
Hello, Melissa Palmer. Thank
Hi,
you.
how are you guys doing? Okay, Supervisor Gould, abstinence plus is that abstinence is the best way to prevent pregnancy and prevent STDs. But in the case of those who choose not to abstain, then there is a component where they can teach how to prevent those things.
When this was an issue about a year ago, it seemed like the abstinence plus, they would allow the students to ask whatever question they chose, so it was kind of a wink and a nod. And that was the impression I got from attending a school board meeting from students that had been in the program.
There's a brand new curriculum that the staff are currently learning, and so I cannot speak to that curriculum, but it still has to go through the same approval process as the previous curriculum did. So each school board will have an opportunity to review that curriculum and then vote on their participation at a school level.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments or a motion?
Madam Chairman,
Supervisor Watson.
make a motion to approve item number 2.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
Have a motion and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
No.
Madam Clerk, do you have the count, or do you want to do a roll call? Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Angus?
No.
Supervisor Johnson?
Yes.
Supervisor Gould?
No.
Supervisor Watson?
Yes.
And Chairman Bishop.
Yes, motion passes. Going on to the next item. This will be a discussion of possible action. Approve the utilization of the Omni Partners Cooperative Contract 151089 for body-worn cameras and storage system with Axon Enterprise Incorporated on behalf of the Mojave County Sheriff's Department, including additional terms and conditions in the Mojave County Requirements document dated 9/16/2020 and the Axon Professional Services and Auto Tagging Appendix for the purchase of body-worn cameras, taser devices, and associated equipment, software licensing, data hosting services, and training at a year one cost of $323,722.13, source to FY21 budgeted fund 100-23901-48500, with subsequent annual cost of $232,221.06 per year for years 2 through 5 in accordance with the adopted budget for each fiscal year, for a total 5-year cost of $1,252,606.37. Further authorize the chairman of the Mojave County Board of Supervisors to sign any related documents necessary to complete the purchase. Okay.
Hi, I'm just here if you have any questions.
Okay, we have Tara Acton at the podium from procurement. Does anyone have any questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Chairman,
Supervisor Gould.
I'm curious why this is on a special meeting instead of waiting for a regular meeting, since it's over $1 million and an ongoing expense of $250,000 a year.
Okay, and for that question, I'll defer to the Sheriff's Office. We have some representatives here. We were actually originally hoping to get this on the September agenda. However, in reviewing the cooperative contract and the quote, we weren't ready to move forward. There were some things that we had to work out. And in order to enable the Sheriff's Office to move forward, they had requested that we put it on a special meeting agenda. So if you have additional information that you want to share, go ahead, but sorry.
Supervisor Gould, I believe the quote is due to expire at the end of the month.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions? Do we have a motion?
Madam Chair, I make a motion for approval.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, the next and final agenda item will be a presentation. Kevin Tunnell from the Yuma County Communications Director, Facebook and Social Media.
Madam Chair, good morning.
Good morning.
Board members. This item is a continuation, if you recall, from the previous discussion related to a county Facebook page. Roger has been coordinating with Mr. Tunnell, his counterpart from Yuma County, who is going to present a brief overview and answer your questions. As you'll hear from him, Yuma County has had a Facebook for quite a few years, and we thought it would be of value to the board to hear about their experience. And so at this point, I'm going to call Roger to the podium to introduce Mr. Tunnell, and I thank you for the opportunity.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Elders.
Yes,
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Chairman Bishop and supervisors. We had this opening discussion last week, of course, on Facebook, having our county Facebook page interactive with public comment as well. A number of questions came up. I had contacted several of the PIOs, or the communication directors, in various counties throughout the state. As I mentioned in the previous discussion, 10 of our 15 counties have a Facebook county page that's interactive with public comment. The interesting thing about the gentleman I'm going to bring up right now, Kevin Tunnell, is he has a wide breadth of experience and can probably answer any question that you might come up with. He's a former Marine public information officer. He's been with Yuma County for some time now as its communications director. He also has recently helped update the FEMA PIO manual as well. He travels across the country and discusses these issues. And I thought, I'm so glad he came over. I want to thank him in advance for making that trip from Yuma to be here with us today. So without further ado, Kevin Tunnell, and please feel free to ask him questions if you like.
Good afternoon, Mr. Tunnell. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairman and members of the board. If you give me just a second here, get set up, and we'll get started here a little bit. Hold on. There we go. Roger, thank you very much for that. The shoes you just told me I had to fill. I hope I can. Madam Chairman, members of the board, I am Kevin Tunnell. I'm the Communications Director for Yuma County, Arizona. 1999, I instituted the first communications plan for Yuma County, and it's been excitement all along. We encountered, to get to the point, our social media presence around 2012. Like Mojave County and most counties and cities across the country, it's met with some caution, and I think that's good. It takes us to take pause, ask questions, and see how we can leverage these types of things to our advantage. Like County Manager Alters mentioned, I'd like to give you a little bit of a 50,000-foot view of social media, Facebook to be specific. And then you can ask any questions that you like, regarding any of the needs here in this county. But most of it, I'd like to talk about some of the best practices that we've encountered since we started. There's lots of benefits. Let's first start talk and establish something. I don't know if I can ask who's here in the right in front of me. If you have children, do they use social media? Or you have people in your family that use social media? Mm-hmm. It's a lot like a movie. You go to the movies, you enjoy yourself for 2 hours, but we don't consider the amount of work that went into the back end to make that movie happen, okay? The things that we do in county government or in city government, depending on who's leveraging social media, how much work is going on in the background to protect that organization's brand or brand messaging is what's important. And we don't see that going on behind the scene. We just see the nice stuff in the finished product. So let's talk a little bit about why we'd even use social media in county government in the first place. First and foremost, for me anyway, for me as a communicator, I get unfettered access to this citizen engagement. It's attractive to be that transparent, being able to communicate directly with the public, the people that we serve, rather than have to go through a separate device as far as like the news media or sending out a press release or things that are left to interpretation. I now have a larger amount of control over. And from the beginning, we knew that we would use our Facebook presence and our social media presence as a communications tool during an emergency, and a perfect example of that is the last 6 months. We certainly would not have been able to push out the level of information, the amount of information to the general public during the last 6 months had it not been for social media. And my role as a communicator, any role as a communicator in this country in times of emergency or distress within the community, is to help reinstill a sense of calm within the community through our words. Sometimes our words help people understand how to save their lives, how to save their families' lives, and how to save their property. Just like the past 6 months, without social media, without me having this extra tool in my toolbox, I would not have been able to push the narrative of staying 6 feet apart, washing your hands, covering your face, those very crucial things that we needed in order to get to this point where we were able to lower COVID within our communities, possibly would not have happened without social media. We can also build public trust through our communication. We have built a higher level of public trust, I believe, in Yuma County as a result of our Facebook and our social media presence as a whole. Again, it's just one tool in our toolbox, so we're using other methods too to get information out to the public. We have not abandoned talking to the media altogether, but in a sense, it's a new type of media that I have control over when I push out to the public. Can set the record straight when things go wrong. I have an ear to the ground. I can monitor the conversation that's going on in social media, and that can give me really great intelligence on shortcomings in my social media plan or allow me to make changes on the fly. I can test messaging through social media. If I'm interested in pushing messaging out, I can throw a test message out there and see how that works on social media, and then proceed accordingly given the data that I'm able to glean on the back end of social media. And possibly one of the most beautiful things, I get to save money. Far and wide, if you have a large presence on social media, if you have a large following, the amount of money that you're spending on social media, if you choose to advertise, is relatively low than going out anywhere else. But the footprint that I have with 13,000 followers, if I have 13,000 followers that suddenly share something that I put on social media due to the conversation we're having on social media, and I have that relationship with them on social media, they're more apt to share the things that I share on social media on their own Facebook pages and increase my reach. Much like you all do, I've noticed that some of the county supervisors here are leveraging social media on their part and doing it very well. They're creating that conversation. That's exactly what, we're creating a brand in Mojave County, and in reality, let me not say that we're creating a brand. The brand is here, whether you like it or not. Your brand is Mojave County. How you're promoting that brand and protecting that brand is up to you all. So that's part of the reason you all might be looking into social media, is to extend the reach of that brand and to protect that brand. Before we go any further, I think it's important for us to understand just how important social media and even Facebook is in this world. There's 3.4 billion people in this world that are on social media. Facebook has 2.45 billion people log in a day, active users. So it's a considerable chunk. When you think about social media in terms of the heavyweights in social media, you have Facebook, Twitter, you have Instagram, you have TikTok. Government agencies are actually leveraging TikTok at this point. I haven't gotten that level. I haven't brought that into my tool chest. It's an expanded thing you can do. I can go to TikTok if I want, or I can stay off of TikTok. My point is that I'm on the big one, Facebook. And that's where I'm getting my best return on my investment in terms of social media. 45% of the nation's population is on social media. Back in 2015, the Pew Research that is behind this information that you see in front of you right now projected that 2.8 billion people would be on social media by this time right now. As you can see from that first statistic, the 3.4, we've exceeded that expectation of the Pew Research Center, so it's growing even faster. What does that tell us? If you really think about that data, we now have even better access than ever before, talking to people individually or in a group, or being able to understand where we stand within our community, or even doing outreach to our community with this. 62% of adults in the United States claim they get their news from social media. That's a pretty strong statistic, and that's growing. And the reason why that's growing, folks, is if you give me a point of personal order real quick, you have children?
Yes.
Okay. So when you, within the teenage era, teenagers,
A little bit older than that.
okay. So there was times over the last 5 or 6 years you might have come home from work and your young person was at home, or your young adult was at home. They have their cell phone out. I've got to ask you, how many of you have come home and actually seen them like this, talking on that cell phone? I've never seen my daughter put her phone up to her ear, nor my son. My son's 14, my daughter's 19. But every time I come home at night, I can see them sitting there like this. They're going at it.
Thumbs are going.
I'm here to hopefully reveal to you all, it's probably not a big secret, but the 18 to 35-year-olds in this country right now are communicating on a level that those of us here right now are not. And they expect us to meet them on that level. The young people in today's generation are now communicating with more people at one time in the same experience than ever before, and they're sharing information. So the nature of social media lends itself to talking to that demographic, 18 to 35. If I'm not meeting that 18 to 35-year-old demographic through social media on my own, I recognized this back in 2012, I was going to be missing out on a very important conversation further down the road. Young people of that age are not going to ABC, NBC, CBS. They're getting it, like I said, 62% of adults right now in this country get their news from social media. So, 2018, social media surpassed print newspapers as a source for reliable information. What does that mean? That means it used to be television, newspaper, radio. Newspaper fell down lower. Now it's television, radio, and social media. So you can see that this is where a lot of people are going to get information. And for me as a communicator in Yuma County, if I'm not meeting them at that conversation, I'm missing out a lot. So some tips really quickly, because I know that my board had a lot of worries when I stood in front of them and said, Kevin Zanella wants to start talking on behalf of the county to people you don't even know. We learned a lot along the way and have refined the process. I've learned to listen for relevant conversations on social media. Then if there's something on there that I detect as a trend, I can go to the public works director and say, hey, what's this about this? Or, I can answer that question. I can put those fires out on social media before they become a bigger issue. Educate the audience and my customers as to what we're doing, how we're doing it, and how we're executing that. Because an informed customer, and if I'm dialoguing with that customer, is a happier customer, a happier person, representative of the county. They become to feel a part of the Mojave County or the Yuma County experience. They in turn go out and spread that message on behalf of me. It goes back to the early following, right around 2003, a book was written called The Influentials. 1 out of every 9 people in this nation tells the other how to vote, where to eat, where to buy their clothes, what's cool, what's not cool. If I can tap that person, they're going to go out and spread that information to the other 9 people that they influence. And I find that very easily through social media. I engage the public. The public wants to be engaged. The public expects to be engaged. I am a taxpayer. In this day and age of access to you all, to everything, I expect to be talking to my representatives on this level. Whenever I visit, let's say, let's take Samsung, for instance. I visit their website. A helpful little attendant on the corner hops up on the corner and says, may I help you? And I talk to a person live and get customer service level on that. This is the level of customer service that's being expected in the world. Social media doesn't have to be that immediate, but it gives us sort of that level of access where somebody can fire off something. They can leave it there for a bit. We can respond to it when we need to, if we're going to respond to it, and the person hopefully gets satisfied. We can follow up. So I get to engage the public, and they appreciate that a great deal. I've learned more than anything, because as you can tell, I'm talking longer than the 10 minutes I originally set out to talk, that I need to keep it simple on social media. Attention span is not long. So therefore, I had to become a very savvy person at how I was going to put that information on. This is where social media really became part of a job, not just sitting at home at night and posting meme after meme and making quippy comments. We had to become methodical. We had to start becoming trend-setting, things like that, so that we could develop the conversation that we have now. And we post regularly, not over much. We had to learn that there was a tipping point with posting. You knock at somebody's door too much during the day, they're going to start ignoring you. So we had to find that gentle balance where we were informing the public and engaging them, but not spending too much time on their wall. The algorithm for social media is built as such that if you're not talking with anybody, it's not going anywhere. I mean, let's face it, Facebook and Twitter they are money-making machines for Facebook and Twitter. So if my site isn't promoting that in terms of a dialogue going on where their advertising dollars will matter, then my post will not just perpetuate itself on people's pages. They'd have to come seek it out. When they have the conversation on, the word spreads better and quicker and easier. We want to stay secure, so let's talk a little bit about it, why you all might feel nervous about social media, why my board felt nervous in social media, and that we needed to really understand that we were going to go after this not as just jumping on and doing it, but we were going to take a slow, gradated approach to going on social media. We started with Facebook. That was our beginning. We now Facebook, Twitter, and you leverage Instagram. Next will be TikTok when this old man figures out how to make a 30-second fun video and not make too much of a fool of himself. We developed team roles. There's somebody else that's going to be doing Twitter within your organization or Facebooking or Instagramming. There needs to be a central person kind of taking care of that shop. And then the teams develop. So those teams develop a conversational tone that Mojave, what is going to be your conversational tone, Mojave County Talks? These are things that are discussed up front. They help consolidate risk. All these things that you're concerned about, if you're concerned about anything about having social media, you would be able to develop before you even actually launch, or if you've already launched, you can develop some protocols to put them in place so that we know how to act when we're on it. It's a playbook, a rule book. And when we understand the rule book, maybe you all might feel more comfortable about somebody representing you on social media as opposed to somebody without a rule book. So a social media policy is a good start for all that, a good place to work out any kind of concerns that you all might have. It protects the county, it protects the public, and everybody's having a good conversation. It also protects the county as well as employees. Because employees might want to comment on social media, and when you dig into this, you can actually talk a little bit in your social media policy what your expectations of how county employees will act. Okay, this is something that's developed and brought to you, and then you all boil it down so that you'll have a clear understanding of how you all will operate while leveraging social media. From there, once you establish your social media presence, we have about 11,000 to 13,000 followers on our Facebook page. It was only during COVID that we had our spinoff, our first official spinoff. We now have a Yuma County Public Health Services District Facebook page, which is now underneath my page, but I have somebody in the Public Health District that manages that page, and that person and I dialogue about how to go about strategic planning of their Facebook presence, how to develop their conversational tone and things of that nature. So that kind of gives you a little bit of an overview of where we were and how we've gotten to where we are. I hope you understand it a little bit. But the most important part of this, I didn't want to spend too much time talking about that, but I know that there was a discussion here, and that I hope that I can bring some clarity to you all to help you all feel a little bit better about this. I feel is a great way to engage the public. With that, Madam Chairman, members of the board, happy to entertain any questions.
Thank you very much. That was definitely informative, and I'm sure that all of our supervisors have a few questions for you. But
sure,
I would be interested in knowing whether or not you monitor other Facebook groups, or do you just monitor the Yuma County Facebook page?
Oh no, you can absolutely. We leverage. Well, I can monitor other groups. I can look around. I can do deep searches to see when Yuma County is mentioned. I have Google alerts, which are outside of, Facebook and Twitter, but my Google alerts, I have a ton of different Google alerts for Yuma County in general. So anytime Yuma County is written about on social media or on Google in the news, I typically get an alert on my phone letting me know what has been written.
Do you comment on those different groups?
Well,
or just monitor?
Are you talking about outside, going on another page outside of the county? No, I don't.
Okay.
So, let me put it this way. Madam Chairman, I think I understand what you're saying, though, is that I don't invite myself into a conversation that might be over on the Mojave County page saying Yuma County's bad. I would never do that. Those people are entitled to their opinion. But what is powerful about that is that I'm a part of that conversation. I might be the person outside and not commenting, but that's powerful intelligence if it's something relevant to my county as to why they're talking bad. And so it becomes a very important tool for me to see those conversations, absolutely. It's easier if it's on my pages. You know, people were so scared at the beginning, and rightly so, because they didn't understand that on this end of social media, on this end on government, it's not just somebody sitting there at night at their dinner table Facebooking or at lunchtime. This is part of what we do. As a communicator, I'm trained, and rightly so, self-trained. Most people are self-trained. They're just starting to have like degrees in social media or part of a communications component within college. They're bringing the social media component in. But for people like myself and for Roger, you know, our job as communicators, you know, when we write press releases, when we speak on camera, those are not just things made up. You get on camera with talking points, you write a press release with maybe talking points in mind. It's no different in social media.
Okay, I would also like to know if elected officials comment on the Yuma Facebook page, and in the event of county supervisors, is there a problem with the open meeting laws that you've experienced?
Sure. Again, good question, Chairman. Madam Chairman, members of the board, it's number one, when you all do develop a social media policy, absolutely you want the county attorney involved. Okay. But I do believe it is a matter of public record, so you would want to make sure that you're capturing. Now, thankfully, on Facebook, the metadata is all captured on the back end of Facebook. But it's a good idea to get a third party or another party involved. There are companies out there that will capture it more effectively and make it more retrievable quicker. The way this Facebook has it set up, it's kind of cumbersome and it takes a while. It's always a good idea. But you'll always have that record. And I don't discourage, you know, again, at the beginning, I think a lot of people were concerned about bad talk on, you know, or bashing the county. As I discussed with, you know, County Manager Elters, I very rarely have to get involved in that. As a matter of fact, it's my choice as to whether or not I engage somebody that clearly has an axe to grind. There are people out there that are just going to, you know, bring up maybe bad things or what they perceive as bad things. It's my choice to engage that person, or to get on and say, that's a great point. Let's take this offline and let's talk and meet if I think it's that important. The important part of all this is if there is anything being said that's bad, if there is anything that needs to be addressed that clearly is something that needs to be addressed, I know about it. These conversations that are going on, folks, are going on outside of these walls without you around. So it's being said regardless of whether or not they're on social media. It just so happens it's a convenient place where you can kind of peek in and say, well, I'm going to make a comment to hopefully clear this up, or I'm going to reach out to that person through their messenger and say, hey, do you have a minute that we could talk on the phone? Things of that nature, or I'm going to answer it right there on social media to hopefully clear up any kind of terrible, you know, untruth about the county. I'm able to do it right there on Facebook and clear it up for everybody that's, you know, there. That's part of the engagement factor.
Okay, thank you. I think I'm going to open it up now to the other supervisors and see if they have questions. Supervisor Watson, we'll start with you.
No, I don't. Kevin, thank you very much for coming up today.
Supervisor Watson.
Seeing you again.
It's good to see you. I did also want to tell you is that I do believe that's a matter of open meeting law. So I encourage our elected officials not really to comment on our social media, and that can be part of your social media policy, that, you know, supervisors and elected officials would not comment on it. Again, the social media aspect of this is like anything else. When a newspaper has written an article or a television channel, you actually, though, have a person in place that can kind of guide the conversation.
Okay, Supervisor Johnson, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you tell me what percentage of Yuma communications is Facebook?
When you say what percentage, I'm not certain what you mean.
how do you reach the people? Do you do press releases which go out and that's probably 50% of how you communicate, or is it all Facebook, or
Sure.
do you use Twitter? Do you use
Absolutely.
Instagram?
Madam Chairman, Supervisor Johnson, I think I understand. This is just one tool. I don't know if I could put a percentage on it, but I still send press releases out to the media directly. My website that the County Communications Office is in charge of is set up so that people can sign up for e-notifications. And so on top of when I send that notice out to the local media about a press release, it will also go to roughly 4,000 people that have signed up for e-notifications. They'll get that directly in their email box. I also synthesize that press release by sending it out through social media. And that can be different for both Facebook, for Twitter, and for Instagram, because there are different types of people capture or listen differently on each of those social networks. So sometimes even pictures have to be a little bit different on each of those social networks in order for them to be seen properly. So it is a component. I would, if I was to address a percentage to it, well, I do it 100% of the time. I send a press release 100% of the time. I'm treating it just like I'm sending it to the news media because I have such a large audience out there listening. Does that help, Supervisor Johnson?
A little, I guess, but I guess what I'm asking is this just one portion that you would be saying we should do that we're not doing now, or is it not really worth it unless we do Twitter and Instagram and TikTok and all these other?
Absolutely. Now I think I understand. Madam Chairman, Supervisor Johnson, no, I'm not suggesting to you, as a matter of fact, I think I'm suggesting the exact opposite, Supervisor Johnson, is that you start out with baby steps. Start with Facebook. Grow your presence, because as you grow your presence, you'll be able to tell which way. I always thought we would be tweeting more. I actually did. I found that because the exact nature of county business is not as sexy as like police, fire, and rescue. Police, fire, and rescue get great engagement on Twitter because it's immediate. They could talk about fires that are happening, or people can, it's just such an immediate process because of the character length. You just look down and get it. So I find that for my purposes in Yuma County, Facebook, I get a better conversation rate, better following, better engagement. Now, my sheriff's office gets better engagement on Twitter. Same with the city police. They get far better because they're always, tweeting very exciting, happening things at the moment. I don't have that much to offer on Twitter. If you look at my tweets, I've sent out, over the past 6 months, we've done a daily update almost every day until 2 weekends ago. We stopped doing the daily update on the weekends for the COVID report. My engagement level was very low on Twitter, but my engagement level on Facebook was extremely high. And so for me, while I still use Twitter and Instagram, because I know people are out there, but my meat and potatoes is within Facebook right now. That could shift eventually. There's going to be another social network out there one day. Take TikTok. TikTok has grown huge throughout the world, and I know everybody's talking about how it's going to go away, but be that as it may, there will be changes in social media as we move through history. And I'm ready for that now that I'm actually doing social media. I hope that helped a little bit, Supervisor Johnson.
Yes, thank you. And obviously you have the expertise, you've been doing it, but from my perspective, my nieces and nephews, and I have a ton of spring breakers that come down to spend the spring break with me.
Right.
None of them are using Facebook anymore. I mean, they're all on Instagram, or there's some other platforms that they use that I'm not on. And I would think that would be our target group, because mostly the board members are older and don't have that communications. You think Facebook is really reaching the 18 to 35-year-olds?
Oh, I'm not saying, again, I'm not saying that completely, but I'm hitting a large part of that market, because I understand. Well, Facebook in large. Let's completely go there. Facebook has been dropping in their overall people signing up for probably about the past year or two. But that's the same for Twitter as well. You know, again, new social media networks are coming up. I'm not suggesting to you, Supervisor Johnson, that you have to go straight to Twitter, that you have to go straight to Instagram, that you have to use Facebook. I was asked about Facebook, you know, here, and my personal experience with Facebook as a county agency, again, I'm getting my greatest mileage out of using Facebook. I can see the data on the back end. There are metrics. When you send out a post, if you boost a post, things of that nature, you can actually see, you know, it breaks down the raw data on the back end, so you can see how many men, how many women, how many 18 to 25-year-olds. You can actually get as granular as you pretty much want on the back end. And then you can readjust your marketing based off of that information. So this is not just something we're just tossing out there. I think you bring up a valuable point, Supervisor Johnson, as far as when you talk about the spring breakers and things like that. Given an emergency, and they're going to know where to find that. Our young people are incredibly smart when it comes to social media and navigating social media space. So if there were to be an emergency, those young people, I'm certain, would know that they would be able to try to search it out on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, wherever you all were pushing out that emergency information, you'd be able to do that. I don't know if it would be Facebook or Twitter that you'd put your meat and potatoes in, but I would suggest to you that maybe Facebook might be a good starting point, since you all are just kind of traveling down this road, as a good place to go and then start building. Again, it's expandable as you want. You can jump over to Twitter right away if you like, or you can just Facebook for a little while, and then let's say 6 months from now, if Facebook's going well, we'll extend into Twitter sphere.
What kind of staffing do you have? I can see if we go to this Facebook and we incorporate all of our Facebook pages that we have now under one banner, that this could be pretty labor intensive, you know, I mean, because I know with my Facebook page, and I'm sure with the other supervisors, people expect you to be on it 24 hours a day answering questions. This could get to be a lot of work for somebody. Do you have more than yourself working at Yuma?
You mean on our social media presence?
Yes, I would guess so, in your communications. Or
Chairman Bishop, Supervisor Johnson, I'm the only person that's posting on social media for Yuma County. And I have three social media, well, I have 3 social media accounts for Yuma County and one for the Yuma County Public Health District that I oversee. And again,
and so you,
yes, sir.
Oh, so you do all the communications. Like here we have just Mr. Galloway. So you're the only person at Yuma that basically handles which would be similar to our PIO?
So, and I don't know if I've done, well, we don't need this anymore. Madam Chairman, Supervisor Johnson, I think what you're asking is that if I'm a one-man band or not. As far as the posting and the development of those posts and the back-end research and things like that, yes, I am a one-man band. I do have a graphics person that helps me out with graphics and things like that. But again, I could do some of that myself. Sometimes I create my own graphics or my own pictures or whatever it is. Again, depending on where you are or which platform you're on, really dictates what you're leveraging. On Instagram, you're really not using much words. You're using more, graphics-oriented, video-oriented. TikTok, for certain, is all video-oriented. Facebook, you can mix and match. So yes, I am a single person, and it's something that a single-person shop can do within reason. If it gets to be too big, you might need some help. If you talk to Fields Mosley, who is the communications director in Maricopa County, he and I were just talking last week, I believe he has about 4 to 8 people doing social media for Maricopa County. Now, they might be over in the health district, or, I don't know where he has all those people tucked away, but the beauty of social media, it can be as big or as little as you want it to be. That's up to you all. I suggest to you all right now that if you all were to, I would start with a singular focused presence and then expand gradually. This gentleman will develop your conversation and start developing your following. We didn't start out with 13,000 followers. We started out with one. I can tell you who that was. It was me, because I liked the page as soon as I created it. So at any rate, we've come a long way, and it takes some time to get to that level. But the beauty of that now is that I can capture the attention of roughly 13 to 14,000 people. And if I've done my job right, you can look at some of our memes that we created during the COVID response. I believe one of them, we talked a little bit about T-Rex not being able to wash his hands, and now he's extinct. That gleaned somewhere around 100,000 hits, and some unbelievable 2, 3, 4, 5,000 shares. So, that's the nature of the beast, is that sometimes you do become viral in nature.
I guess my last question would be that Mr. Galloway has told us that there's a program out there that would protect us from abusive language and those things. Is that something that you have, and what does that cost us, do you know?
I don't have any kind of special program. On the back end of Facebook, you can set things. One of them is it's a language setting, and you can set it as low. People can say whatever they want, or as high as you like. I have the counties. I don't tolerate any kind of vulgarities, which includes certain types of language. And I can tell you that I think I've had to block 2. I've never removed anybody from the Yuma County account. I have that ability. I can block somebody completely from being able. We haven't been able to do that. Haven't had to do that. I've had to block myself 2 comments since 2012. But Facebook has blocked far more. Happens every day. Because of that setting that I set in the back end, if anybody starts cussing, it automatically blocks the comment from the public. Does that answer your question, Supervisor Johnson?
Yes. Yes, thank you, sir. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, Supervisor Gold, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I find it interesting that you can block people, because our own congressman, I believe, found out that you could not block people in as an elected official if government money is spent on the Facebook page.
Madam Chairman, Supervisor Gould, if I'm hearing you right, you're talking about you're not allowed to block, or you are not allowed to block as an elected official?
Congressman Gosar was sued by the ACLU and Jim Morgaine for blocking Jim Morgaine from his Facebook page, because his Facebook page is maintained with taxpayer dollars.
Right.
He then had to let her continue to post on his page.
Chairman Bishop, Supervisor Gold, absolutely. As I mentioned to you, I have not blocked anybody from our page, but I have blocked comments. And so, there are robust, I'm not going to lie, there are robust discussions that occur on our Facebook feed. For the most part, I think the public appreciates the fact that we allow them to discuss openly. Yes, it can get out of hand. There have been times over the last 5 or 6 months. It was very interesting. At the very beginning, nobody wanted to wear these masks. There's a saying in emergency management, we care now, they will care later. So by June, things were really getting tough in Yuma County COVID-wise. And then the order came down to wear masks. And please give me just a second here, Supervisor Gould, to get to the point. Nobody, everybody's against wearing the mask. But when we started seeing the results of the mask, suddenly when people came on and talked bad about wearing masks on my Facebook page, I noticed that the general public started talking to that person. And they took care of that problem. I never had to speak, because they wanted to defend their right. I allow that dialogue. It's an open dialogue. It's not hurting me. It's not hurting anybody else. And as long as it's factual and it doesn't get out of hand, and I don't have to step in and block any comments. Otherwise, if there's something that somebody asks me directly, I can either choose to answer it or not answer it, or refer them to that department through Facebook. I hope that helps out a little bit, Supervisor Gold. I understand what you're talking about, and I don't believe that we should block people because they are the public, okay? But we can block individual messages if they get out of hand, and that's part of the responsibility that I take on when I'm doing social media for the county.
So how do you handle split votes on issues?
One more time, forgive me, you were talking...
Supervisors.
Supervisor Gold, we couldn't understand what you said.
How do you handle split votes on issues?
Split votes? What?
Yeah, if I could clarify.
For instance, we had an issue over whether something was a tax hike or not.
Whether somebody was... I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time.
Supervisor Gould, if I could clarify. So what?
Why these items shouldn't be discussed at a telephone meeting.
So I think I understand what they're good at. What do you do when you have a situation where there's a topic, an issue that people want to talk about, and there's clearly a split among the board members as to where it should go? Half of the board thinks it should go one way, the other half of the board thinks it should go the other way.
Sure.
How do you address those split issues on social media policies, on your social media sites?
Well, I don't have to be a part of that discussion.
So you don't put it on, I think that's the question that Supervisor Gould is
Sure.
trying to get at.
Madam Chairman, Supervisor Gould, I guess maybe one of the easiest way that I can handle that comment is that I choose which conversations to be a part of on social media. If it's a dicey issue on the board, and if I felt compelled at the least bit to even comment on it, where maybe they were talking about some heated item that the board discussed during the day, I might reach in there and just put a fact, but most importantly, if I felt compelled to talk to them on that level, I would say you would probably want to talk to your board members independently to speak to them directly. That's the advice that I would give on social media. They have to be respectful of the fact that it's a communications tool to educate, to familiarize. It's not there to hash out politics. And I know a lot of people do choose to do that, but we choose to get sucked into that conversation. When I'm a county representative, on my personal Facebook page, I'll speak freely. But when it comes to representing the county, I don't engage in those types of activities.
Okay, so the way I'm understanding it, Mr. Tennell, is that the individual supervisors usually have their own Facebook page that can have those type conversations, but
Sure.
the Yuma County social media page is just posting information about the county in different departments.
Absolutely. Madam Chairman, members of the board, it is a little bit of a different set of rule book for you all to be able to post independently, and an enormously larger, different responsibility than I have as communications director. But how you all conduct yourselves on your own personal running for office, or just keeping the public informed, because I know some supervisors like to keep their Facebook pages open in official capacity just to keep their constituency informed of what's going on. Those have sets of rules as well, but I don't manage those pages, and I wouldn't be.
Okay, thank you. That certainly makes sense to me. You wouldn't want to have a back and forth between supervisors and take a chance of violating the open meeting laws.
Certainly, and you do need to be cognizant of that as to whether or not you're breaking open meeting laws. Again, as I was talking earlier, you want to have, as you develop a social media policy, playbook, so everybody knows what's going on, kind of the guidelines of how we'll proceed. You'll absolutely want to have that in play to take care of these items that concern you up front.
Okay, I'll go now.
Madam Chairman.
Supervisor Gold, go ahead.
I was not talking about interchange between supervisors on the county Facebook page. I was talking about a split vote on an issue, and the PIO then has to sell one point or the other. that's where the rub gets. He operates as the gatekeeper, and I just don't agree with that. Thank you.
Yeah, I believe that any comments would probably go with the majority vote of the board. You know, whatever the majority decided on, that's probably what would be reported in social media posts. But
Madam
Mr.
Chair.
Elkins, go ahead.
If I understand Supervisor Gould, Supervisor Gould is talking about prior to any board action, if the board is debating an issue and it's a split board, what does the communication director do, or what if they say something that influences the minds or the decisions one way or the other? To that end, I believe, and again, he's here, he can respond, but I believe the response was the communication director and the face page does not get engaged in debates that are going on at official board meetings, because after all, he's got the discretion to weigh in or be silent on it. However, if the board makes a decision, if the board votes on an issue, then whatever the board decision is, that's what he's bound by, and that's what he's going to communicate and advocate.
And that's really Madam Chairman, Supervisor Gould, County Manager Elters. We have the Yuma County Facebook page. It's not the Yuma County Board of Supervisors Facebook page. I've got a ton of departments that have a lot of really great stuff going on that most people don't, they take it for granted. I'm able to leverage social media and tell that story. I'm able to tell the story of every one of our 1,300 individual employees if I wanted. I can tell them when they're out there, please slow down for these guys out here on the X and X road. So I think I understand a lot, Supervisor Gould, about the apprehension of the concern about things on this board and maybe unknowingly circumventing what this board is trying to do. The social media isn't there just for the board, and I typically don't talk a lot about what goes on in board meetings. I'm focusing a lot on, did you know our WIC office is still open during COVID? Did you know you can get free pre-trial services up at the courthouse? Do you know we have a law library? Do you know we have a public fiduciary? These things that people in our general public have absolutely no idea because they're so busy these days. They don't, and then the only time they have to, maybe I have to capture their attention is at night when they sit down after and they run through Facebook. Oh, look at that. Well, the county is going to be doing this, this event coming up or whatever it is. So I could actually choose to say within our About section on Facebook, we will never talk about any agenda item. That's the rule that I'm laying down. If people break that rule, I don't have to engage them on social media, but it's written there. So you can actually create this presence where we will not discuss items that are coming before the county, Board of Supervisors. That's fine. What this guy here wants to do, he wants to market your brand. Mojave County brand is more than what's just sitting here in front of me. It's everything behind it and all around that people aren't seeing. And we can now take everybody in your county to those locations, talk about them, and educate them about what they're doing. And they appreciate that. They didn't know it before. So, and how we educate them. Sometimes we're a little bit quippy. Sometimes we're a little bit fun. Sometimes we created an entire, again, a point of personal order. Out of us having social media, we created the Great Yuma County Diamond Hunt, where we hid 7 diamonds throughout Yuma County using social media. I got together with the Yuma Sun, and over the course of a week, through social media, we wanted people to learn more about the county. So we chose 7 very important places people didn't know a lot about in Yuma County. Every day, the Yuma Daily Sun wrote an article about that place, a generalized article. And then at a certain time during the delay, I released the longitude and the Yuma Sun released the latitude on Facebook. And hidden at that point was that diamond that they were going for. We had such a tremendous response from that. So my point is that I think I understand your concern, Supervisor Gould, and I think Supervisor John, well, all five of you should have concerns. What I'm here to tell you is that you can put those concerns down a little bit. I would encourage you, call the County Supervisors Association, talk to Craig. See, he probably has a finger on the pulse of people leveraging social media in counties. What sort of problems are out there? Call down to your friends on the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors, the Pima County. Call your friends down in Yuma County, and get a feel for, you might have been a little worried up front. Are you still scared about social media? I think you might be able to understand. And I applaud the fact that y'all are asking questions, because if you ran into this nilly-willy, it would be disaster. But when we take an approach, a carefully thought-out approach, and proceed directly, we can leverage social media in our favor and develop a conversation that you've never had before, and exposure of your county that you've never had before.
Okay, I think we'll go to our last supervisor now. Supervisor Angus, do you have any questions?
No questions. Just want to thank you for coming down all this way and talking to us. I think the last 5 minutes of what you just said about the things that you do to show off Yuma County, that is what we had in mind, or at least I had in mind when we first brought this up. I think it would be a fantastic tool, and anything we can take away from your presentation to put into our own policy will be very beneficial. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Supervisor Angus. Nice to hear your voice.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Tennell, and we do appreciate you coming down and sharing your
Absolutely.
expertise.
My pleasure. Good luck to you all.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, if there's no other discussion, I'll go on to the final item on our agenda today. This will be discussion of possible action, provide direction to staff on whether to move forward with the concept of developing a county-wide Facebook page and an enhanced social media presence based on a communications plan. Mr. Galloway, did you have anything that you wanted to say before we open this up to discussion?
Chairman Bishop and Supervisors, I think that Kevin cleared up many concerns that I think that were brought up at the last meeting that we had, where we discussed this very issue, this subject, and I think it was very well handled, and the questions that came up, some of them brought up again from the last meeting, help us a lot to understand what we'd like to do and what the plans are. But I just want to assure everyone that we would put a plan in place that would take care of these concerns that you have. And I think the phrase that he used about taking baby steps could apply to the policy itself. Maybe we start out with it being a little more restrictive than is really necessary, and see how that all works out, and maybe we can broaden it a little bit as we go along, and that would be up to you. But I can rest assured you that I have no intentions into coming in and talking in favor or against something which is being debated by the supervisors themselves, or is going to be, or has just been debated. That will not happen.
Okay, thank you, and that's exactly what I wanted to hear. I see more of this Facebook presence being a way to project who Mojave County is and what we have to offer, and maybe highlight employees occasionally that do things that are outstanding or out of the ordinary, maybe highlight our parks and our services. So that's kind of where I'm seeing, not as a place to debate political issues, but a place to welcome people to Mojave County and tell our story.
All right, thank you.
Okay, do any of the supervisors have any comments that they would like to bring before I ask for a motion? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Supervisor Johnson.
Yes.
I just think with things that Supervisor Gould brought up, until we have a policy or some kind of plan in front of us to go ahead and make a motion to go ahead with something that we have no outline for would be a little premature. That's all, Madam Chair.
Okay, Supervisor Johnson, I can certainly see that, and perhaps what we might want to do then is give the authority to Mr. Galloway to develop a Facebook policy or a plan and bring it back for review. Mr. Elters, do you have anything that you'd like to add?
Madam Chair, board members, no, I really don't. The intent is to get direction from the board. We do understand that we need a comprehensive policy that addresses our communication. And I'd really like to remind the board that early in the year before COVID, the board saw a need and had a vision to enhance the county communication tools. To do so and to do it effectively, we need a plan. We need a guide. We will develop such. And Facebook will be a part of that. So, if it's your intent, if it's the board's intent to move ahead with it, we would appreciate a nod or a guidance to proceed. And if the intent is to develop a plan that addresses the policies that you asked about or heard about, we'll be more than happy to do so as long as we're directed to head in that direction. Thank you.
Okay, Supervisor Angus, you were one of the big supporters of this, as was I. What direction?
Well, I agree with you, Madam Chair, that let's go ahead and direct staff to come back to us with a plan, with a policy, a comprehensive policy that we can discuss and feel good about going forward.
Okay, was that a motion?
That's a motion.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Okay, I will second that motion. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No. No.
Okay, and I will vote aye, so I think the ayes have it. Motion passes. And this meeting is adjourned.
Hildy has left.